You've probably heard of the California Gold Rush in 1848. You may have even heard of the Silver Rush in Nevada in 1859. But you may not have heard of what happened in 1872. Gold and silver prospects had filled the West with people looking for the next big thing. Everyone, it seems, had embraced the idea the mountains and riverbeds held an abundance of minerals ripe for the picking. And so the stage was set for the Great Diamond Hoax of 1872. There was a diamond rush in South Africa around the time of the California Gold Rush, and visions of precious gems had made their way to the Wild West, dancing in prospectors' heads like sugar plums. One of these prospectors proved himself wilier than the rest. His name was Philip Arnold, and he was a veteran of both the Mexican War and the Gold Rush. He worked for a diamond drill company and by one means or another acquired a pouch of rough diamonds. His cousin, John Slack, became his partner in crime, and the two began scheming. They walked into the office of prominent businessman George Roberts and showed him the pouch of diamonds, letting slip that they'd hit the mother lode in Native American territory. After making Roberts promise not to tell anyone, George did just the opposite. He told a guy, and then he told a guy, and then that guy told another guy, and pretty soon Arnold and Slack's plan had worked. Investors flooded to their door, and the pair secured 50 grand to make another visit to their so-called diamond field. Instead, they made a trip to England where they purchased a lot of uncut stones for the small price of $20,000. Upon their return, they told investors that the trip to the diamond field was lucrative, but this time they had found more than just diamonds. This went on for a few months. As investors gave them more money, they continued overseas to buy more uncut gems at a lower cost. By this point, investors wanted the stones appraised, so they took them to New York. And this, my friends, is where Charles Lewis Tiffany comes in. Yeah, that Tiffany. After sorting through a small sample of the rubies, emeralds, and sapphires, Tiffany exclaimed, "Gentlemen, these are beyond question precious stones of enormous value." About $150,000 to be exact. A few days later, after appraising the rest of the stones, he said the haul was worth at least $1.5 million, which is about $30 million today. To be fair, Tiffany likely overvalued the stones just a little bit, but still not a bad flip if you ask me.
Flip, Philadelphia!
With news like that, investors were eager to see where all these stones were coming from. So, for the next few months, Arnold and Slack kept buying stones from other places. Once they had enough, they went to a location just outside of Black Butte, Wyoming, and set up what has got to be the greatest Easter egg hunt ever conceived. Once the stage was set, the cousins then led their investors on a deliberately confusing 4-day horseback journey. They pretended to get lost several times, climbing hills to get their bearings and really selling the bit. When they finally arrived, the investors were set loose and, surprise! After more than an hour, diamonds, emeralds, rubies, sapphires, and allegedly pearls were being found by the handfuls. Wait, pearls? Where do you get pearls in Wyoming?
That don't make no sense.
Anyway, that sealed the deal. Arnold and Slack negotiated the sale of all their stock, about $8 million in today's money, and headed back to Kentucky. One of the investors secured around 3,000 acres of land, even though the area that Arnold and Slack had bejeweled was hardly more than 1 acre. Things would have gone perfectly if not for a chance train encounter between investor Henry Janin and a government survey team led by Clarence King, a Yale-educated geologist. He was the first man known to have ascended several of the highest Sierra Nevada peaks, and he gave Mount Whitney its name. Pretty cool guy. Janet had shown the men his crystals and explained their origins, but alarms went off when King explained that most diamond discoveries had been found in Arizona and New Mexico, not near where Janin claimed. Not only was Janin concerned, but now King was, well, interested.
Well, gentlemen, you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
If a major diamond discovery had been made by anyone other than him, the thoroughness of his survey work would be questioned. This led to a bitterly cold 150-mile journey to the vicinity of Arnold and Slack's gem field. As expected, the group found a bounty of precious gems, but something was definitely off. King noticed that wherever he found a diamond, he also found a dozen rubies. Too neat for a natural deposit, the men also realized that the stones were found only in disturbed ground and not beneath it, and on top of rocks of all places. Alarm bells were rung as the geologists realized these precious stones would have never formed naturally together in the same area. And that was that. Arnold and Slack's investors cut their losses and trudged back home. Mind you, none of them lost all of their fortunes. They were millionaires to begin with, but it was a black eye on their reputations for being so gullible. A San Francisco grand jury indicted Arnold and Slack for fraud, but the contents of the indictment were never revealed. A speculation was that they were quashed by the investors to avoid further bad publicity. Everyone wins.
Win-win.
Win.
Fine.
But
It is done.
I love that it took a geologist to expose this massive fraud. Like our friend Elizabeth says, geologists are just rock detectives. What gems would you go hunting for in the bitter cold? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. You don't want to miss out on any of our future episodes. Thanks for watching.